You lie back, still and quiet, and let the weight of the day drift away from your chest. Above you, a night sky unfolds like dark silk, scattered with stars, ancient, gentle witnesses of time. You look up and feel something deeper than mere distance, a spaciousness, a silent vastness that stretches beyond sight, beyond thought. It isn't just the stars you're seeing, but the space between them. Space that moves, that breathes. Imagine the cosmos as a kind of sleeping body, not a machine, not a clock, but something more living, more poetic. Like lungs drawing in a soft, slow breath, the universe expands. It doesn't explode outward in chaos, but stretches calmly like a quiet tide moving farther from shore. Galaxies drift gently apart, not from a push, but as if carried outward on currents we can't see. Long ago, people believed the universe was fixed, eternal, unmoving, a perfect dome with stars pinned like lanterns. But time proved otherwise. The stars are not still, and the space around them is not empty. Everything is carried in motion, always gently unfurling, always becoming. You might wonder, how can space itself expand? Imagine a loaf of bread rising and raisins inside drifting away from one another without moving on their own. Or think of dots on a balloon's surface, gliding apart as the balloon slowly inflates. It's not the dots pushing each other away. It's the space that holds them growing larger. This is what scientists discovered, not all at once, but in layers like dawn gradually brightening the sky. In the 1920s, astronomer Edwin Hubble noticed something quietly astonishing. When he looked at galaxies far away, he found they weren't just distant, they were moving away from us. And the farther out he looked, the faster they seemed to flee. It was as though the night itself were exhaling. Not an explosion, but a breath. Steady, expansive, deep. You may wonder, where is the center? From where is everything moving outward? This is one of the strange and beautiful parts. In this cosmic breath, there is no center. Each galaxy sees all others moving away from it, as if every place in the universe holds its own stillness while everything else drifts. You too, from your resting place, could imagine the universe flowing quietly outward in all directions around you. There's something peaceful about this. You are not pressed into the corners of an overwhelmed world. You are, in some deeper way, supported by the rhythm of something vast and unfolding. Something so wide and patient that it carries even galaxies on its slow tide. Scientists call this the expansion of the universe, and they measure it carefully. Drifting lights, stretching wavelengths, clues in the glow left behind by the birth of everything. But while the tools are precise, the feeling is not one of mathematics alone. It's one of awe, of openness, of puzzle pieces floating gently apart. You close your eyes and imagine it. In every direction, across impossible distances, space swells, gently, invisibly, constantly. There is no edge you can fall off, no wall the galaxies will crash into. Just more space, making way gently for more time, more stars, more breath. This expansion takes place not just far away, but here, around you, within you. You are made of atoms once fused in stars that floated apart long ago. The same tides that carry galaxies have carried the very elements in your bones. You are not separate from this widening cosmos. You ride upon it. And yet, many questions remain. Why does space expand at all? What began the breath, and what sustains it? Could it ever slow down or reverse? A sigh inward after the outward stretch? We once imagined gravity would win, that the pull of every star and galaxy, all their weight and warping of space, would slow this motion. Like a stone tossed upward, we expected space to rise, but eventually fall, drawn back into itself, into darkness and fire. But something changed our thinking. Not all observations matched our expectations. There was a force, it seemed, one still hidden, not pushing things apart directly, but hidden in space itself, woven into the silence. Tonight, the questions do not demand answers. They invite you to rest in them, like lying back into the soft swell of a lullaby you do not fully understand. The universe breathes, long and slow, and you breathe with it. Your heartbeat follows a rhythm that began before your birth and will outlast the stars. Out there, galaxies still slide away from one another, carried by a breath that has not yet finished exhaling. And you here are held within that same breath, quiet, expanding, endless. In sleep, you drift not downward, but outward, not alone, but alongside scattered stars and silent light. Who or what fills this breath? What moves it forward, even as it empties? You feel the question resting at the edge of knowing. And tomorrow night, perhaps, you'll follow it a step farther, into a place where emptiness isn't truly empty, and darkness holds a quiet energy all its own. You listen to the quiet, a kind of silence that stretches far past your walls, your town, your sky. This silence grows outward, blooming into stillness across vast, starless reaches of space. But even in the deepest darkness, in regions where no star has ever shone, something exists. And tonight, you drift gently into that mystery, into the empty that isn't truly empty at all. You've probably heard space described as a vacuum, a place without air, without warmth, without anything at all. It is true that space contains less than the barest whisper of matter. No oxygen, no ground to stand on, no breeze to carry sound, just darkness in every direction. And yet, emptiness holds more than appearances suggest. Within the darkness, something stirs, something subtle, unseen, like the hush between heartbeats or the space between waves. This blankness carries energy, even without form. You can't touch it, but you feel it in the motion of the stars, in the speed of light across the years. Let's imagine for a moment that you are floating there, not in orbit around Earth, but far beyond, where galaxies become lanterns, scattered and small. You look around and see no planets, no dust, no glowing nebulae. It feels like nothing, but it isn't nothing. It never was. Physicists once believed the vacuum of space was truly void, a zero of existence. But as telescopes improved and mathematics deepened, the truth began to shift. Even with zero matter, space does not sleep. It hums with a faint energy, delicate but expansive, like the breath of something immense. They call this dark energy, not because it is shadowed or dangerous, but because we do not yet fully understand what it is, and because it fills space invisibly, gently, utterly. Not a thing in space, but part of space itself. Dark energy is everywhere. It doesn't flow or clump like matter. It doesn't shine. Instead, it seeps quietly through the backdrop of everything, woven into the structure of the universe like thread across a loom. To grasp what this means, imagine you're holding a fabric in your hands. Beneath the threads, something stretches, invisible but firm. Pull a little, and the whole cloth shifts. Dark energy is like the hidden tension in that fabric, shaping how the weave lies, how it moves. In 1998, astronomers studying distant supernovae, exploding stars that briefly shine brighter than galaxies, noticed they weren't just far away. They were farther than expected, moving away faster than calculations had predicted. The universe wasn't just expanding as once believed, it was accelerating. It was a quiet shock. What could possibly make space expand faster over time rather than slow down? Gravity pulls things inward. That much was known. But here, in the most distant measurements, something else was working against it. The vast nothing of space was not truly passive. It had a pressure of its own, not the kind you feel in the air, but a kind of repulsive energy. An outward push stitched into every corner of the cosmos. Not noise, not force, but presence. Even in a perfect vacuum, this energy lives on. And the more space grows, the more potential there is for dark energy to act. Not because it spreads thinner, but because it's constant in density. It doesn't dilute. Space grows, and dark energy keeps pace, quietly invigorating the very act of expansion. You can think of it like this. Matter, dust, gas, galaxies, people, becomes thinner as space stretches. But dark energy remains. Like a whisper just beyond hearing, it is present in every cubic centimeter of space, no matter how large the universe swells. It is this persistence that makes it powerful, small in strength but vast in reach. An influence not in concentrated bursts, but in soft insistence, continuing always, pushing galaxies gently apart over billions of years. You may begin to see emptiness differently now, not as absence, but as a kind of quiet fullness, a sea without ripples, a field with no breeze, and yet alive, awake, breathing softly. Dark energy is not a thing to hold, but a rhythm to sense, like the pulse of distant tides. Even here, where you lie still and quiet, you are surrounded by that same presence. Not in a way you can feel with your skin, but in the gentle drift of galaxies, the patterns in the sky, and the quiet knowledge that the universe moves in silence and grace. Space is not waiting to be filled. It is already filled in ways we are still learning to hear. A symphony played without sound, a story written in the language of absence. Dark energy doesn't cause storms or earthquakes. It doesn't burn or freeze. It touches nothing, and yet shapes everything. It is the backdrop, the canvas, the soft current beneath all cosmic movement. A force as intimate as breath and as distant as the edge of time. Sometimes theories are offered. Maybe dark energy is the energy of the vacuum itself. Or maybe it's caused by a new kind of field spread through all of space. Some call it quintessence, composed of something more subtle than particles. But names are only islands in a sea we haven't crossed. We do not yet know exactly what it is, only that it is, and that it surrounds us, like the calm that follows a long breath. And in the midst of all this mystery, you remain a part of it, not just beneath the stars, but within the ever-expanding field they drift through. The empty space inside your atoms is filled with the same unknowable silence. So tonight, let darkness comfort you rather than frighten you. Let it become a place of listening, not of loss. There is more in the quiet than ever imagined. And sometimes what looks like absence is only a presence that hides well. As you sink deeper into rest, held by the hush of night and the rhythm of your own breath, remember that silence does not mean nothingness. Space does not mean emptiness. And the unknown is not a place to fear, but a place to float. Somewhere far beyond your view, galaxies drift farther apart. And between them, in the hush and the still, something invisible makes its soft request. Keep going, keep growing, keep wondering. And so you do. You drift toward the next question. If emptiness holds energy, what then is this energy pushing against? What is resisting it, if anything at all? You lie quietly, letting your breath slow, and above your resting body, the stars continue their silent shine. You let your thoughts drift backwards, not just through space, but through time. To the minds that first questioned how the sky moves, not just how stars burn or orbit, but how everything drifts through the vastness we now call the universe. For centuries, scientists believed one thing to be certain: the universe must be slowing down. Why wouldn't it? Gravity pulls everything inward. Like a tossed stone slowing its arc, surely space would move outward for a while, then stall. Perhaps even collapse again someday. It was a peaceful notion in its own way. A universe that rises and falls, breathes in and out. Predictable, cyclical, governed by gravity's gentle tether. But as you'll see tonight, the cosmos has a way of surprising us. Especially when we think we already know how it dances. Imagine now, floating at the edge of the 20th century. Galaxies have been seen, redshift has been measured, and we know with deep certainty that the universe is expanding. Still, there is an equally sure expectation that it must slow over time. So, a group of astronomers looks out, not just across the universe, but backward through epochs. They search for ancient explosions, beautiful brief events called Type 1, a supernovae. These are dying stars that flare with astonishing brightness, like celestial lighthouses blinking at the edge of time. Because their brightness is so consistent, they can act as distance markers across the cosmos. And so, these scientists, Two main teams, working a globe apart but toward the same goal, try to measure how fast the universe has been changing. They look deeper into time, measuring the light from supernovae billions of years old. Each one is a tiny spark in space and a clue to the heartbeat of the universe. They take their measurements. They crunch the data carefully, tracing how far each ancient supernova seems to be, compared to how fast its host galaxy is moving away. And then, something unexpected emerges from the numbers. A whisper, then a murmur, then a roar. The universe is not slowing down, it is speeding up. This insight is like a hush dropping into a vast room. It shakes the very floor of what was known. The fabric of space is not coasting. It is accelerating outward, as if driven by a force we hadn't even imagined was there. You can almost feel what they might have felt in that moment. Surprise, confusion, maybe even disbelief, but also wonder. Because something hidden had been found, not by looking for it, but by carefully listening. This force, this unknown something, driving the expansion, we now give it a name: dark energy. A placeholder for a whisper we still barely understand. Imagine finding out that the very nature of the universe is not just moving, but ending every moment, reaching farther outward with ever more speed, like a slow river suddenly leaning into a deeper current. No one saw it coming. Not really, and in that not knowing, a kind of beauty bloomed. Because human science had once again brushed up against mystery, and instead of fear, the response was stillness, then awe, then curiosity. But this was not just a small shift in knowledge. This was a tremor in the very structure of cosmology. The story had changed, subtly, peacefully, but profoundly. You trace this shift now in your own lazy thoughts as you settle deeper into rest. From the gravity-bound vision of a slowing cosmos to the more mysterious one. A sky that unfurls, not just from momentum, but from an invisible hand pushing gently behind every galaxy. Where does this pushing come from? What kind of energy rests in the folds of emptiness? Could space be creating itself? These questions are not solved in one night or even across generations. But they started here, with flickering stars and careful eyes. Astronomers looked back billions of years and found the present whispered in the past. Supernovae became signals, not of ends, but of beginnings. Traces of a time when dark energy had not yet taken over and gravity still held more sway. Because here's another part of this story. For a long stretch of cosmic history, gravity was winning. Matter pulled against expansion, slowing it bit by bit. But as space itself kept expanding, something shifted. The density of matter thinned like cream spreading through water. Gravity grew weaker with distance, but dark energy remained. It did not fade, it did not stretch thin, and eventually it began to dominate. This is the quiet power of dark energy. It does not shout, it waits, and with time, it becomes the language the universe speaks. So when scientists discovered that expansion is accelerating, what they really discovered was the dominance of this hidden presence, a force so subtle yet now the tide that guides the fate of everything you can see. As your body nestles more deeply into rest, consider what it means to live in a universe that does not slow, but expands forever, faster and faster, into an openness we may never fully trace. Some say this means isolation, that galaxies will one day drift so far apart they'll lose sight of one another. Some say it means peace, a universe stretched so wide it settles into stillness. Others wonder still if we have missed something, a layer of the story not yet revealed. But for you tonight, none of that needs an answer. It's enough to feel the wonder of the sky changing shape, because a few watchful minds caught light from long ago and listened closely enough to notice what it meant. It began with small questions. How bright is that star? How far? How fast? And it grew into a mystery that touches everything, including you. Because in your chest, breath by breath, you feel a slowness giving way to something still unfolding. And now you might begin to wonder, what is gravity really pulling on in this expanding world? What is the shape of the balance between the outward and the inward? Between matter and the whisper of dark energy still at work? Close your eyes. Take a long, slow breath. Hold it gently and let it go. You feel the pull toward stillness, toward the center of your body. And with each breath, a quiet rhythm settles behind your ribs, steady as the stars, steady as the sky. Now widen your awareness. Picture the cosmos as a great fabric stretched across time. At every point in this fabric, two hands reach in opposite directions, one pulling in, one pushing out. Gravity is the hand that pulls. Strong in its silence, it wraps planets into orbits, binds moons to worlds, stars into galaxies, galaxies into clusters. It gathers, it knits, it anchors. You feel gravity every day. Feet pressing against the ground, clouds hugging the earth, your body drawn gently toward the center of the world. It is grounding, tender, constant. But now imagine its partner, the hand that pushes, something softer, more elusive, like a long breath expanding through the chest of the universe. This is dark energy. Where gravity ties stars together, dark energy unthreads the bonds between galaxies. Where gravity builds, dark energy loosens. Not recklessly, not destructively, but with slow determination, like frost drawing lines in stone. Scientists didn't know these two were rivals. For most of cosmological history, gravity stood alone in our stories. The single great sculptor shaping all that we could see. Its power visible in the swirl of galaxies, the arcs of comets, the crush of black holes. But then, the sky told a fuller tale. Somewhere past the stars, between the galaxies, there was another force at work. Fainter than gravity, yet endlessly filling space. Not a force that pulled, but one that pressed, lifted, stretched, a gentle rival. Imagine the universe not as a battlefield, but as a dance. A slow duet of hold and release. Gravity closes the step. Dark energy opens it again. Together, They choreograph the expansion of space. What a strange, silent partnership it is. They do not touch directly, but meet across light years. Gravity gathers dense, visible stuff, galaxies, stars, atoms, your very own skin. Dark energy works through the lightless gaps in between. You picture it this way. If the universe were a great net made of stars and galaxies, gravity would be the knots that pull the net tighter. Can we step through one? Could we ever send a signal, a whisper, a message etched in light from one side to the other? Not yet. Perhaps not ever. But nature might have already built them, quietly, secretly. Some theories suggest that tiny wormholes, smaller than a proton, flicker in and out of reality at the quantum level. Ephemeral pathways stitching space in ways we don't yet understand. A cosmic nervous system, threads that pulse and vanish in the rhythm of the vacuum. Some scientists even wonder if entangled particles, those strange twins in quantum mechanics, are in fact connected through microscopic wormholes. A union of theories, a whisper between ideas. You lie with that thought now, curled near sleep's edge, feeling gravity not pushing down, but drawing you along curved lines of wonder. Because even though we do not know if wormholes are real, their possibility bends the imagination in profound ways. They offer more than shortcuts. They offer a challenge to believe that the universe might be bigger than logic, that hidden within blackness is a hallway of light not yet taken. Perhaps no one has ever passed through. Perhaps no one can. Or perhaps we've already seen echoes of crossings, particles that don't behave, signals that arrive without clear source, moments that feel like time folding for just a breath. You fall into rest with the idea that if the cosmos is curved enough to hold black holes, it might also be tender enough to cradle bridges, not made by hands, but by gravity, time, and the unfinished imagination of space. And so, as you drift, you begin to wonder, if a black hole leads to somewhere else, could it also preserve what's fallen in everything it ever swallowed? Close your eyes. You're floating now, thought by thought, in the soft pull of gravity's deepest current, not toward destruction, but toward knowing. We've imagined black holes as graves, then as gateways. But tonight, we ask something quieter, something closer to the heart. Do black holes remember the things they take in? There is a strange elegance to information. It shapes everything. The arrangement of stars, the flicker of your thoughts, the codes that fold matter into meaning. Information isn't just trivia, it's structure. It's the difference between chaos and coherence, between a random pile of letters and a poem. In quantum physics, information is sacred, not because it's perfect, but because it's preserved. At the smallest scale, particles behave like probabilities, but their interactions follow rules so precise the universe sees to it nothing is ever fully lost. If a photon bounces from a mirror, its patterns echo that moment. If an atom splits, the pieces still carry traces of their past. Even if jumbled, scrambled, the ingredients remain somewhere. The total information, it is said, must survive, even if it hides, even if it's unreadable. But black holes complicate that truth, because once something crosses the event horizon, it seems to vanish, completely and forever. A feather falls in, a spaceship, a planet, even light itself, gone. No signals return, no structure escapes. The horizon becomes a gentle surface of forgetting. Or does it? This is the information paradox, a puzzle that haunts physics even now. Stephen Hawking helped name it and wrestled with it for half his life. If black holes evaporate slowly through something called Hawking radiation and eventually vanish, but the radiation they emit is random, then where does the information go? If the black hole disappears and its contents are unrecoverable, then the laws of quantum mechanics have been broken. And if quantum mechanics can fail, the whole foundation of the universe becomes unstable. But Hawking, like the black hole itself, held layers of mystery. Later in life, he revised his thinking. He began to wonder if perhaps the information isn't lost after all, only smeared, spread thin across the horizon, not trapped inside forever, but encoded gently on the surface like ripples in a quiet sea. Imagine that. Everything that ever fell in, recorded somehow on the outer edge, written not in ink, but in space-time itself. This is called the holographic principle. It suggests the contents of a black hole, every atom, every vibration, every story, might be saved in 2 dimensions pointed on its boundary. And not just black holes, possibly the entire universe. A 3-dimensional world projected from a 2-dimensional surface at its farthest edge. It's not fantasy, it's math. A growing frontier of theory where gravity, quantum fields, and information twist into harmony. You rest with this gently impossible thought that you, your memories, your breath tonight may be shadows on a wider horizon, codes and patterns wrapped in deeper space. But let's return now softly to the black hole's surface. If the information is there, inscribed as heat, as entropy, then black holes are not silent erasers. They are librarians, not ones who speak loudly, but who whisper over billions of years. They release bits of memory through fleeting particles as they evaporate into faint, faint heat. That's Hawking radiation, the slowest form of grief, the universe letting go in the quietest terms. But what escapes isn't destroyed, not entirely. Some believe it holds quantum echoes, a map, a motion, a flicker of what used to be. Black holes may take in everything, but encode it in the most delicate layer of space. And so tonight, you rest not with the idea of loss, but of gentle remembrance. You are not dreaming inside forgetting. You are dreaming inside a universe that may remember more than you could ever imagine. Even in collapse, there is conservation. Even in obliteration, something endures. Maybe it looks like heat. Maybe it hums like gravity. Maybe it ripples at the event horizon like a secret covering a song. For now, we cannot read that surface. We cannot hear the stories the black hole hums back to the void. But we believe they're there. Because the alternative is that meaning itself has a boundary it cannot cross. And perhaps the universe is not that cruel. Perhaps it is storage, not shadow, a vessel of secrets, a place where nothing escapes, except slowly the memory of what was. And now, gently, you sink inward into stillness again. You lie within a universe built on memory, preserved by gravity, made holy by questions we're still learning to ask. And the next question brushes your thoughts. If even black holes can remember, could something escape? Could we somehow see beyond the veil of no return, not just outward, but from the inside? There are places meant only for going in, hallways without doors, rivers without upstreams, moments where motion has one direction and no return. A black hole feels like one of those places. Once something crosses the event horizon, it does not come back. Not because it ceases to exist, but because even light, the fastest thing in the universe, isn't fast enough to climb back out. And yet, tonight, you drift into a question thin as light and as stubborn. What if there were a way to return, even briefly, even partially? You don't grip the question tightly, you let it hover like a candle flame in a windless room. Some of the most curious minds in physics have dared to ask this very question. Can information come back? Can light escape? Can something, even a whisper, emerge from the dark? The answer, slowly, delicately, is beginning to lean toward maybe. Not in the way we once assumed, not a reversal of falling in, not a full return of matter sailing back through space, but something softer, a trickle, a message, a quiet leak at the edge of what we thought was perfectly sealed. This idea begins with Hawking radiation, a whisper of particles gently emitted at the event horizon. The black hole glows, ever so faintly, like a cooling ember in a vacuum. How? Because the vacuum of space is not truly empty. At its finest levels, it seethes, with pairs of virtual particles that appear spontaneously, then vanish just as quickly. Occasionally, one of these pairs forms near the event horizon. One particle falls in, the other escapes. The particle that escapes becomes real and carries away a tiny bit of the black hole's energy. Not much, but over eons, this steady drip could cause the black hole to shrink and eventually evaporate away entirely. This process, born in theory, is now considered central to our understanding of cosmic evolution. But what does that escaping particle carry? Just heat? Or something more? Could it be that this gentle light is not just random energy, but encoded memory? Some physicists think so. They believe Hawking radiation may carry the faint structure of what fell in, smeared, transformed, but still reachable in some mathematical way. If true, then black holes don't keep secrets forever. They whisper them back, across time. But this isn't escape in the usual sense, not a spaceship flying out, not a body returning. Only information trickling upward from the edge, like messages in bottles set adrift from the horizon. Still, this leak matters. It means the universe is not entirely forgetful. It means, perhaps, that escape is not about mass, but meaning. That light, when it returns, doesn't return whole, but it tells of what was. Another door opens via imagination. What if black holes connect with other exits? You've heard of wormholes, of black holes being connected to white holes through tunnels in the geometry of space. Now imagine, if falling into a black hole leads not to compression and death, but to emergence, through that white hole companion far away. Some models of the universe suggest this might be possible if physics allows quantum bridges that don't collapse too quickly to travel through. In these models, there is no true escape from the black hole in our universe. But another universe may receive the contents. What is lost here may be born there. What falls in as one kind of matter might come out restructured, in another form, another reality, another dawn. Even if we can't step through now, such ideas awaken a calm defiance in the silence, that where something goes may not always be where it ends. But there is another notion, quieter, stranger, that part of everything could already be escaping. In recent years, physicists have proposed that black holes at their edges are more than smooth horizons. They may have structure, a kind of microscopic surface where information clings and flows. Think of a shimmering lake that reflects not just sunshine, but the shadows of everything beneath. The horizon may be this kind of place. Not smooth and silent, but active. Some even suggest that black holes could create observable echoes in space-time, faint rings and ripples that reflect internal complexity. Gravitational wave detectors are beginning, slowly, to look for them, for little mismatches, little resonances that say, there is more happening here than you can see, not particles flying out, but space-time itself murmuring, like a voice rising through water. Still, you lie still. No need to chase answers, only to be rocked gently in the wake of possibilities. You feel the softness of escape, not as triumph or reversal, but as release. Escape may not mean flying free. That's the old way. Perhaps in this universe, to escape is to slowly return as light, as wave, as memory. And late in time, long after stars have gone dark, every black hole may melt away into the same light, giving back all of what it once swallowed, restored as echo, reformed as stardust. Even the darkest thing in the universe, in the end, lets go. And you? You lie on your quiet world among stars in one small galaxy, drifting in an ever-widening universe, carried gently by dark energy and sleep. And as you dream, you imagine that nothing is final, not even falling in, because light tries to turn back. And sometimes, in the slow language of eternity, it does. There are some places so invisible, so deep in their silence, that for a long time we only trusted they were there because of what they did to everything else. Black holes were like that. They left trails, not footprints. Stars orbiting something unseen, light bent around their gravity, matter disappearing into seemingly nothing. And for over 100 years, we believed in them without ever seeing one. Because how do you see something that lets no light out? How do you witness a cosmic silence so complete, even photons cannot tell you what it's hiding? Still, the human spirit does not rest easily at the edge of the unseen. And so we tried. For decades, we dreamed of capturing the edge of a black hole. Not to see inside, but to see the moment just before light gives up. The soft brink where space curves so tightly light decides to orbit. That's what we aimed for, the shadow of a black hole. And one quiet day in April 2019, that dream became real. Close your eyes and imagine it. 50 million light-years from Earth, a galaxy called Messier 87 spins in quiet grandeur, massive, ancient, remote. At its heart, a black hole larger than our entire solar system rests like a stone at the center of a swirling pond. It weighs more than 6 billion suns. And around it, a halo of matter spiraling inward, glowing gas, heated to unimaginable degrees, caught in the grip of gravity's most patient hand. And just beyond that glowing disk is the thing we tried to see. The event horizon, the edge beyond which light no longer returns. The place where even time forgets to run forward. But again, how do you photograph silence? To do it, we had to build a telescope the size of the Earth, not with one mirror, but with many. A collaboration spanning continents, linking observatories across the globe to form one unified eye. The Event Horizon Telescope. Thousands of signals observed across nights and deserts, mountaintops and frozen peaks, all stitched together by algorithms that whispered patterns into clarity. It wasn't one photograph taken with a click. It was petabytes of information processed over months. A slow emergence, like a shadow returning to a fogged mirror. And what appeared? Not fantasy. It's a woven law of the universe. Time slows in gravity's embrace. Einstein said it first, and since then, we've tested it on mountaintops with atomic clocks ticking at different elevations, We've proven it in satellites circling our Earth. Even your GPS device corrects for the soft warping of time as it moves between orbital heights and sea level steps. But near a black hole, the effect magnifies. Time does not just shift there, it stretches, twists, and drips slow like candle wax from the edge of infinity. Now imagine this. You hover just outside a black hole's event horizon, close, but not inside. Far enough to stay safe, close enough to feel time stretch like silk drawn taut. Your friend watches you from far away, high above the black hole's pull, where time still feels normal. From their perspective, your movements begin to slow. Your hands lift sluggishly, your voice trails into silence, not because you're tired, but because time for you has slowed. You, drifting near gravity's great throat, feel every heartbeat the same. But to your friend, each blink takes hours, each breath, days. If you floated long enough, you could watch the universe age from the slow theater of your own moment. Stars forming, burning out, galaxies colliding. Not simulation, but a golden ring glowing softly in the void. A circle of light around a hole of nothing. The very first direct image of a black hole's silhouette. And though it was blurry, its presence was thunderous. Not an artist's impression, not a computer's guess, but the unseeable, seen. The ring itself is not the event horizon. What we see glowing is hot plasma orbiting, spiraling, burning as it dances toward the fall. But the black center, that perfect circle of absence, that is the shadow. Not a thing, but an effect. Its size, its shape, its location, all exactly where Einstein's equations said it would be, more than a century ago. And in that moment, physics didn't become fantasy. It became verified poetry. Mathematics wrapped around reality with such precision, you could draw a line across galaxies and have it land in the dark. You lie here in your bed, hearing about pictures of distant shadows, and you feel something stir. Something like reverence. Because it is not the sharpness of the image that matters most, it's what it represents. That we, tiny as we are, built a world-spanning eye to witness where light bends into silence. And it worked. The photograph blurred with meaning. It said, "You were right to wonder." It said, "Even darkness leaves an outline." It said, "Look how far your curiosity can reach." And now the effort continues. A second image was taken in 2022. This time of the black hole at the heart of our very own galaxy, Sagittarius, a star. Smaller, more chaotic, but no less graceful. Another soft ring around another quiet absence. We are beginning to map what cannot otherwise be mapped by coloring in the edges of the things that do not emit light, but warp it. With every image, we chart more than stars. We chart the limits of us, and then trace beyond them. You rest gently with this thought, that capturing a black hole's shadow isn't about knowing what it is inside. It's about seeing that it's real. It's about building mirrors so finely woven that even light's final moment can be gathered and shown. It's about believing that darkness has form, that silence has edge, that even what falls beyond return still leaves a mark before it disappears. You think, too, of your own thoughts, the ones that sometimes fade before you can hold them. You wonder if they leave shadows, too, impressions in the soft light behind your eyes. And so you drift off, not into blackness, but into that glowing ring, the place where light pauses and asks, is there more to fall into, or more to rise through? Two black holes, each vast and heavy, drifting through space toward one another for millions of years, unnoticed. Their gravity circles, pulling, twisting, not with turbulence, but with an eerie elegance. They spiral, not recklessly, but slowly, drawn by time, by gravity, by a rhythm older than stars, and then one final turn, and they merge, not with an explosion, but with a shudder so deep it doesn't roar through sound. It ripples through space-time itself. The fabric of the universe stretches, squeezes, and waves begin to move outward from the point of collision like rings in a dark, invisible pool. These are gravitational waves, and for the longest time, we knew they should exist, but had never heard them. Not until 2015. You lie back now, quiet as starlight, and recall that moment in human history. So ordinary, the day. So extraordinary, the discovery. The facility is called LIGO, the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory. A pair of arms, each 4 kilometers.
Long, built in stillness, surrounded by silence, designed for one sacred mission, to detect the slightest tremble in the fabric of everything. On September 14th, 2015, those arms vibrated, barely, by less than the width of a proton. And yet that whisper was the sound of 2 black holes merging over 1 billion light years away. Not metaphor, not poetry. Sound made real by space itself, ringing like a bell. What we heard was a chirp, a soft, rising whoop like 2 deep notes, drawing closer until they became one. And across science, across the world, humans paused, because we hadn't just seen the universe, we'd heard it, and it wasn't silent. You imagine those black holes now, twirling in a deep waltz, their orbits shrinking, their velocities rising, faster, faster, until in a fraction of a second, they touch, and space-time, without hesitation, sends out the news, not through photons, but through geometry itself. No light, no particles.
But for now, you rest inside a cosmos that feels balanced. Each inch of space, each breath you take, shaped by the long story of matter and energy unfolding across time. You need no spaceship to fly through it. Your mind moves just fine. Across curves it cannot see, into shapes too large to draw. And in that shaping, there is a quiet rhythm that echoes the balance inside you too. Think of the curves of your body. Ribs expanding and falling, the spiral of the ear, the orbit of blood cells on their loops through your heart. You are made of spirals and spheres, held together by gravity's song, but kept open, reaching outward by something softer still. To live in a flat universe is to be suspended, between return and escape, between folding back to what has been and opening to what could be. You are not falling outward into meaninglessness, nor pressed inward to collapse. You are floating calmly, right at the edge of both. What a gentle wonder that is. You may think now of lines that curve so subtly you cannot notice, of paths that seem straight but whisper something more, of light traveling not just through space, but through curved space, as if drawn across the skin of a sleeping giant. And still, you ask, could space close someday in upon itself? Could it open so far that galaxies stretch to invisibility? Or is there something holding it just here, a kind of breath paused perfectly mid-motion? These are not questions you need to answer now. Tonight, you only need to sense the grace of inquiry itself. To wonder not because you're confused, but because wondering is part of resting too. In the dark, the edges of the universe remain unresolved. Soft as horizon, smooth as the inside of thought. And as you drift deeper into starlit sleep, you feel the shape not just around you, but within you. A geometry of breathing, balance, and becoming. And somewhere beyond your dreamscape, space still stretches not randomly, but with form, with quiet intention. Still, even with all this vastness, you may ask, where is this expansion heading? And how does time feel at the edge of forever? The night around you is still. It cradles you with velvet softness, your body sinking into quiet like a stone into deep water. Somewhere inside this stillness, you begin to imagine time, not just as moments ticking away, but as a widening path, expanding gently before you. This night is not about sleep alone. It's about sight, the kind that turns inward, stretches outward, and asks without rush, what does the future look like in a universe that never stops expanding? You begin with now, with the stars still shining above Earth, each one a distant sun steady in its glow. Some of these lights are already gone, their last flickers still crossing light years, like farewells unopened. And yet, the sky is bright. Brighter than silence implies. Even now, galaxies fill the universe in nearly every direction, moving away from each other in a great, slow, outward breath. Dark energy is at work here, steady, invisible, present in all things. It doesn't age or change. It doesn't press hard. It simply acts with perfect patience. There was a time, long ago, when gravity and dark energy held equal weight, a cosmic balance point. But gradually, as galaxies grew farther apart and matter grew thinner, dark energy stepped forward. Not dramatically, not in a sudden surge, but like nightfall, softly overtaking the colors of the day. Now, that gentle outward pull dominates the expanding universe. And what lies ahead, what lies very, very far in our future, is a universe ruled almost completely by separation. You imagine it unfolding slowly. Billions of years from now, the galaxies closest to ours, the ones in our local group, may remain near. Gravity will still hold them in a quiet embrace. The Milky Way and Andromeda already drift toward one another, set to merge in the distant future, becoming one great glowing swirl of stars. But beyond that, the rest of the universe continues slipping away. Picture the sky as it could look many trillions of years from now. No pinpricks of light from distant galaxies. No trail of light crossing endless black. Only the dimming remnants of our own galactic family fading slowly into silence. This thought doesn't need to feel cold. You're not watching a tragedy. You're witnessing something more like autumn. A natural drawing inward, the falling away of brightness into stillness. Astrophysicists call it the cosmic horizon, a kind of boundary beyond which light will never again reach us. Everything beyond this invisible edge expands away faster than light can travel. Not because the galaxies race on their own, but because space itself expands between us. And so, 100 billion galaxies will vanish from view, not exploded, not destroyed, but quietly gone, beyond seeing, beyond knowing, still existing, still evolving in their own corners of infinity, but inaccessible from here, from us. It is hard to picture something so immense and yet so gentle, like fog slowly rising off a lake at dawn, or pages of a book turning themselves in the wind, ending each story only once you've let it go. The stars, too, will change. Born from gas and dust, they shine for billions of years, but fuel runs out, and one day, even star birth will cease. In this far future, the cosmos becomes quieter, more subdued. Red dwarfs, the long-lived streaks of fading fire, will flicker their last light. The bright blue stars will be long gone. Only the embers remain, cold, dark stars, and the slow drift of invisible things. Time stretches on. Trillions of years grow into quadrillions. Gravity still murmurs in the shadows, pulling black holes into each other, drawing quiet masses into colder shapes. Eventually, even black holes begin to release their energy. Through a process called Hawking radiation, they slowly lose mass. A whisper of evaporation, echoing over incomprehensible spans of time. And so, there comes an era where nothing glows. No stars, no light, only the occasional spark of a proton decaying, if such things decay at all. This isn't an ending like a slammed door. It's the closing of a symphony, the hush after the final note fading. And even in this great quiet, the universe still expands, ever wider, ever farther. The future growing more distant with every passing moment. But you are not there. You are here, in the age of stars, a golden window of brightness and seeing. You live in a cosmos still full of light, where galaxies still speak in color, and starlight still crosses space to touch your eyes. Dark energy has already claimed its place. The expansion accelerates. But for you, drift carries meaning, not fear. It teaches you to notice what is now, to hold it gently and let it go. Because this gentle unraveling is not destruction. It is evolution at the scale of everything. No part of nature stays fixed. Not the edge of a leaf, not the orbit of a moon, not even the shape of space itself. And the universe doesn't mourn this shift. It unfolds with ease, with grace, as if each new degree of separation is itself a kind of bloom. In this way, the future isn't cold. It's wide, spacious, a cathedral whose walls fall away, leaving only quiet wind and open sky. And so you breathe into your own expansiveness. You lie in your room on a small planet in one galaxy among many, resting somewhere within this great, widening motion. And still, you are home, because even in drift, there is belonging. Even in departure, there is presence. And even in silence, there is the echo of creation. You follow this understanding now, deep into the folds of your breath, into the infinite canvas that stretches slowly on a path that may never circle back. This is not the end of everything. It is the continuation of something more. A universe not collapsing, but unfolding. Not closing, but drifting open, forever. And forever does not rush. Forever is patient. Much like the dark energy that carries space outward, on tides that never crash, only pull softly from beneath. And as you let go, as your thoughts stretch wide, and your body becomes heavier in comfort, you may ask a question not of starlight or matter, but of meaning. If this expansion continues without end, if distance becomes the greatest shape of reality, then what names will we give to those invisible forces that defy being touched, yet shape everything we know? Where do the stars go when the future carries them too far to see? What remains when even light cannot return? Where does mystery live when all the bright things have wandered past the edge? The night has grown quieter, deeper. You rest more fully now, cradled not only by your bed, but by the open shape of wondering. There is no rush. The universe whispers in a language made of questions, and you simply listen. You lie here, calm and still, wrapped in shadows softened by moonlight, and you think, we call it dark energy. But as the thought lingers, you feel something shift. As if those words are not a definition, but a placeholder. A soft sound we make when standing at the edge of mystery. A name we give to something we cannot yet see, but cannot ignore. Dark energy. It sounds solid, final, like we've captured it. But when you reach for it with your thoughts, it drifts again, wide and subtle, outside the grasp of even our deepest science. You remember it now, not as a force, but as a presence. Something once discovered through the slow flight of galaxies. Something speaking in the curve of space, in the rhythm of light, red shifting away. A push that expands rather than contracts. A breath that grows instead of clenches. And yet, what is it? We do not know. Not fully, and so we name it dark, because we cannot see it. Energy, because it does something. It acts, it changes space, it moves galaxies, even if we cannot grab it with our instruments. Still, the name doesn't tell us what it is. It only tells us that it is there. It will take trillions of years, and somewhere in that deep geometry and gravity may spark again. An idea reborn, the next big bang, a new story breathing in. But before we reach far ahead, let's return gently back to now. Back to the black holes, still spinning, still visible, still shaping gravity's story. Not everything stills when it falls. Sometimes it spins. And not with chaos, but with rhythm, with form, with structure so deep even gravity curves in its spiral. Tonight, you drift into the heart of that motion. Black holes, often imagined as static voids, silent and unmoving, are rarely ever still. In truth, most of them spin, and when they do so with unimaginable speed, twisting space-time itself into a vortex you cannot escape and cannot quite understand. But tonight, inch by inch, you'll come closer. Imagine a star collapsing, not centered, not perfectly balanced, but tilted, rotating, falling in on itself while preserving that rotation. That spin does not go away, it focuses, it intensifies. Angular momentum, a conserved quantity in physics, demands it. What spins stays spinning, and what shrinks spins faster. like a figure skater pulling in their arms to whirl faster on the ice. Now imagine that skater is a dying star. Its core collapses into a black hole, and the spin, once gentle, becomes extreme. The result? A Kerr black hole, a spinning black hole, named after the mathematician who first described its nature. You float beside one now, suspended at a safe distance. It doesn't look different, but its pull is not the same. Near this black hole, you are caught in more than gravity. You are caught in dragging space. Space-time, that soft, invisible framework, is not just bending inward toward the black hole. It's rotating with it. Physicists call this effect frame dragging. Time and location themselves are twisted, caught in the immense spiral of mass and spin. You can't hover still here, even if you tried to stay motionless. Even if your engines canceled every push of gravity, you'd still move because space around you is being pulled sideways. There is a quiet poetry to this, that even space-time, which holds all things, can itself be curled, twisted, stirred by motion. Your breath follows that spiral now, rhythmic, slow, as if rocked gently by gravity's tide. Because this spin isn't pure violence, it creates structure. Around a spinning black hole, a curious shape forms, a region called the ergosphere. Outside the event horizon, but still deeply affected, this region allows for a strange possibility: escape. Not from the black hole itself, but from its rotational energy. In this tilted borderland, particles can dip into the spin, steal some of its motion, and fly back out with more energy than they entered with. This is not fiction, it's physics. It's called the Penrose process, and in theory, it might someday allow for energy extraction from the spin of a black hole. The universe, through motion alone, offering power. You drift now through this region just in imagination, letting the concept blur gently in your mind, not to master it, but to feel its possibilities. To know that rotation creates more than movement. It creates opportunity. A spinning black hole keeps secrets and gives gently from them. It becomes not only a trap, but potentially a dynamo, a fountain, a carrier of energy and memory. Researchers suspect that some of the most powerful jets in the universe, beams of light and matter that stream for thousands of light years, may be fueled by the spin of black holes. Matter caught in the accretion disk, the hot, glowing swirl around the hole, gets thrown outward along magnetic poles. That twist, that energy, comes from rotation. The object that devours can also give, but only through the spiral, only through spin. You lie still now, realizing that stillness and motion are relatives, that what feels calm can still stir the world around it. A rotating black hole doesn't beam with color, it doesn't shimmer, it moves with quiet depth. But around it, space dances, time slows, light bends, energy flows, and the entire shape of reality refuses to be simple again. There is one more thought, a gentle whisper by theorists still exploring. A rotating black hole might be more forgiving than a still one. The centrifugal motion might soften the breakdown at the center. It might prevent a perfect singularity from crushing all to zero. In those models, a rotating black hole doesn't have to be an end. It could be a ring, a portal, a place where geometry loops softly into somewhere else. The spin becomes passage, the spiral becomes door. Where there was collapse, now motion. Where there was a wall, now curved space, not to trap, but to pulse. You, asleep now or nearly.
Carry the thought that the black hole's darkest secret might not be destruction, but the space it gives permission to twist. And next, we might ask something even deeper. What if we've misunderstood them all along? What if black holes are not devourers, but givers of time, space, and shape in ways we're only beginning to see? You followed the spiral inward. You felt light fall and time slow. You've drifted through theories shaped by gravity and silence. And now, lying here beneath your own sky, the only sky you've ever known, you come to one last threshold, the place we've been circling all along. What is a black hole, really? A prison? A mystery? A mistake of the cosmos? Or something else? A doorway, maybe? Something waiting to open? It's true that black holes take in everything. They erase detail. They devour light. They resist measurement. But at every turn, they've also revealed something deeper. Not emptiness, but form. Not chaos, but clarity. They've made possible some of the most astonishing ideas physics has ever dared to dream. Not endings, but beginnings shaped differently. You begin to wonder, what if what falls into a black hole doesn't end, but continues in another way? Maybe not in this universe, maybe not in the form it arrived with, but transformed, released, unfolded into another chapter. Some scientists propose that each black hole could seed a new universe, a bloom of space and time that grows gently inside a cradle of gravity, that the singularity, far from being a point of termination, is merely a constriction before rebirth. Think of it like this. When a star collapses, it narrows into a single point. But perhaps that point isn't merely a line that ends, but a funnel that begins elsewhere. A baby universe folded so tightly we cannot see its blooming threads. Not from here, not from now. It sounds fantastical, but the math doesn't rule it out. Quantum gravity, loop theory, cosmic inflation models. Each whisper hints that black holes might not be the monsters we once believed them to be. Maybe they're nodes, intersections, translators between realities. And if this is true, our own universe might have been born inside one, a black hole in a larger cosmos. And we, everything we know, are floating in the calm echo after the collapse. A gate that opened and never closed. You roll over gently in your mind, this feeling that perhaps even the most terrifying forces are not without tenderness. That collapse makes room for creation. That darkness may carry new light, not as fire, but as form. Consider how black holes affect their galaxies. Some spin at the hearts of billions of stars, not as destroyers, but as organizers. Their mass holds motion, their gravity seeds beauty, their presence stabilizes the storm. Without them, perhaps, galaxies might never find their spiral. So maybe the black hole is not waiting for you with teeth. Maybe it's waiting with arms outstretched in gravity's quiet language, ready to rewrite what space-time can be. And so, we end not with answers, but with a gentler uncertainty that everything we've called a grave may actually be a gate, that what seems to take away may be redistributing across realities. You step back and see them differently now, not just voids, but junctions in the cosmic web, not lifeless, but deeply alive in a language beyond biology, pulsing with math, curved by time, anchored in mystery. And isn't that the truest lesson? That even the most feared parts of our universe are ongoing questions deserving of awe. Tonight, the sky above you remains crisp and wide, quiet as thought. And somewhere beyond what you can see, a black hole may be spinning, not just waiting for matter to fall in, but moving with the rhythm of something bigger than destruction. Something like evolution, something like becoming. And you have traveled far tonight. Your body stayed still, but your mind traveled through singularities and shadows, through spinning funnels and falling light, through time stretched like silk. So far, it nearly folded, and now you sleep knowing this, that mystery doesn't have to be fearful, that darkness is not always the end, that black holes, like all things, may wear more than one name: gray. last thought